This podcast has been brought to you by Podcast Nation.
Maybe there are things that we have been told that are truth, and we believe it to be true because we have no reason not to believe it to be true.
Right.
But maybe it's not true.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
You're listening to the Laughing Couple podcast with your hosts, Brittany and Ryan Ostafy. Join them weekly as they discuss topics such as relationships, kids, sex, parenting, all unfiltered and all with a healthy dose of laughter. Please welcome your hosts, Brittany and Ryan Ostafy.
Okay, so we were watching Bluey.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted to say to you beforehand. So
I was in the middle of a story.
No, you haven't started the story yet.
I did start the story.
Well, here's the story. And then can we just do
so
this? Because
not only does he take the end of the podcast, he's also taking the beginning.
You know, a good friend of mine, John, told me that that he finds this funny, and I don't find this funny. So go ahead, do your thing.
What? What does he
I
find
told
funny?
you that before we started, I want to say something when we first get on the podcast, and you said okay.
When?
And then so now it's the first thing of the podcast. When we were upstairs, I said I want to talk about this first thing on the podcast, and you're like, okay.
Oh, okay. No, go for it.
So now you make me look like an asshole.
No, go for
when
it.
we had an agreement, conditions of satisfaction.
No, but the only reason is because I was literally mid-story, and then we pressed it record, and you were like, could you shut the fuck up for a second so I can say what I need to say? But you can start. Absolutely. Go for it.
Anyways, when we were upstairs, I just noticed how nice you look.
Thank you.
And I find it funny because on this podcast,
Because you usually look like trash.
No. Wow. That's jumping to a terrible conclusion.
I'm just kidding.
No, it's funny to me because I can always look back at our podcasts and know pre or post podcast recording what we were going to be doing based on what we're wearing. Because more often than not lately, I've either had Zoom meetings or before the meeting or after this meeting that I got to jump right into for that are TEM related.
Yeah.
So I have been dressing less Nike, less like casual.
Yeah.
And you have not been. And so it's like I'm wearing like a button up and you're wearing a sweater. Well, today, obviously you either just had a meeting or you're going into one. You look phenomenal.
No, I don't have a meeting. I just wanted to look nicer today.
Oh, okay.
I don't need a
Well,
reason.
you look great.
Thank you.
It's just funny. It's like, obviously Ryan's got a meeting today. Obviously Brittany's got a meeting today.
I don't though. I'm trying to have because I would often get that in high school when I would I'd want to dress nicely and people would be like, where are you going? Like, why are you so dressed up? I've talked about this before. And I would always be like, I have an interview after school, or like, oh, I have a project or a presentation. Like I'd always have to make up an excuse, and it's like followed me into adulthood.
No.
But I've been actively trying to be like, nowhere, just wanted to.
You know who?
No, you know what I just saw? Sorry, someone was like, when someone says that to you, you can say, "Oh, thank you for noticing." Yeah, like I just wanted to look nice today. Like throw it back on them.
Yeah,
so
throw it
thank you
back
for
on them.
noticing.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
See, Jordan Peterson at one point in time, he decided that he was going to wear a suit and tie and elevate his look. Right? He said, "I didn't do it for anybody else. I did it for myself." He said, and then I started to realize when I would do lectures and I would do these conferences that more and more people started showing up in suits and ties. He says, and now when I do a conference and when I'm a keynote, everybody in the auditorium is wearing a suit and tie, or he's like, I've literally elevated the audience based on how I wear, or based on what I wear. And there's something to be said about this. Many people have said, act and dress the way you want to be, and you'll get there. So there's like the be, the do, the have. Be the person you want to be. Do the things that person would do, and then you'll have the things that person has. Be, do, have. It's been a motto of mine for a long time. In fact, it's even engraved on the back of my iPad. So be, do, have.
On
It.
the back of my neck, I got a tattoo the other day.
Anyways, that's my take.
like
Be,
that.
do, have. Be it. Then do it, you will have it. Most people think if I have it,
Yes,
I'll do it,
right.
and then I'll be it. That's not how the world works.
When I was speaking at the that gala a couple of years ago, that was one of the things I had said at the end. Like, project the person that you want to be, and eventually you'll become her. Like, pretend you're her It's like if you do something long enough, eventually you're just not going to understand what was faking and what is real.
Yeah, see, the thing is you don't even have to pretend. I think if you look at someone that you admire, right? And then you say, okay, from a characteristic standpoint, not from a financial standpoint, not from a what do they have standpoint. If you look at them from a characteristic standpoint, what are the qualities they possess that you truly like?
All I was saying,
all of those are duplicatable.
Yes, all I was saying was do it in a way, because that's not always easy for everyone to like project this confidence in a personality that you want to eventually be. So if you're kind of just like, well, I'm going to fake it, for lack of a better word, fake it until you make it, it really does ring true, because you will eventually not know the difference between the two. Like anytime I'm really nervous for something, I always tell Radley to do this too when she has like goes on for cheer. I just think about if I was playing myself in an acting role. Like say I'm like, I have to go up on stage and I'm like, okay, this is literally just a character that I have to play. And then like I go on and pretend that I'm this like character and it's just like I'm just acting. But then I'm like really just me. It really helps my nerves for some weird reason.
I heard something the other day which is very similar to what we're talking about, but loosely similar actually, now that I think about it, but it's still relevant. The guy was saying, how do you stop, maybe I can listen to it on it's a really short clip. He's like, how do you just deal with people talking shit about you? Like, how are you okay with just being okay with this narrative happening?
Yeah.
And the guy says, well, because if you look at it, unless you know they're talking shit about you, that's an entirely different situation.
Oh, so you're just thinking like
this person thinks the worst of me.
This is like, oh, okay. But you don't know for facts. You're just assuming?
Yeah. He's like, if you think about it, you kind of made it up that they think this way of you.
Sure.
You haven't been, it's never been validated to you. So if you made it up, then in theory, it's you actually thinking shitty about you.
Yeah.
Having them think about you.
Powerful.
And he said, so when I realized that I'm actually in control of what I think they think of me. Mm-hmm. He said, and if that's true, and they are in fact being a dick to me, maybe, just maybe, they've made up a narrative that I have of them, and they're just reflecting that on me. Mm-hmm. He said, so I kind of look at it from they're doing the same thing that I'm doing, and it's being reflected out at me, but it's really just a conversation they're having with themselves about themselves through the lens of somebody else, which is kind of funny.
It is. I also think that's really hard, because if you people have like intuition and stuff, you kind of know, like, when you walk into a room and everything just kind of goes silent and you're like, were you guys just talking about me? Like, those feelings are usually true.
Yep.
For some people.
There's certainly truth to them.
Anyway, I want to tell you this story. So
I want to hear about Bluey.
Yes. So Bluey, we're watching Bluey, and it was on the weekend, and I don't even know what we were doing. You and I had taken a gummy. This might be whatever. The kids are home. We're not doing anything. We're not going anywhere.
The kids are about to go to bed.
Yes. They're about to go to bed. We took a gummy so that it would kick in
when they're in
bed. They're sleeping, we could like giggle together. And so I set up my phone because we're about to watch Bluey, and I was like, oh, I know that we're going to like, something's going to be funny because we're so high watching this. So I set up my phone. Forget that I've set up my phone because the gummy had kicked in sooner than we were anticipating. Cooper is still awake. Okay. He's still sitting in front of us, like on the couch, and we're all watching it. I'm filming. There's a part in Bluey that's like, he says something, like the dad says something, and it's so clearly not going to happen. And I used my thoughts were on speakerphone, and I say out loud, forgetting that Cooper's there. We're all just dead silent. I'm like, the fuck he is. Ryan was like, Brittany. He's like, we are not alone here. And I was like, huh. Cooper he didn't even like hear me or whatever, but I was so interested in what was happening. I was like, yeah, the fuck you are, Dad. Like, you're not doing that. And then I was like, oh my God.
I remember that specifically because I remember looking at you being like,
oh my God. You were like,
there was a couple things that happened in my head. Number one, I recognized in that moment that you and I were sitting on the couch watching Bluey. And in your mind,
so good.
And in your mind, we were doing it just the two of us.
No, I knew the kids were there, but I kind of just thought that they were like not paying attention.
the kids.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
God.
you in
and
your
I have
mind.
it on video. I'm actually gonna send you the clip, and you can like splice it in here.
In your mind is just the two of us hanging out on a couch watching Bluey.
Yeah.
And I will say this: if the
Bluey's the
kids
best
are
show
not
ever.
around, I would not be opposed to watching an episode of Bluey. That is
so
one
good.
of the most brilliantly written
Yeah.
shows I've ever seen in my entire life. The idea that they can take a kids show, make it so like you know how some what is it Pixar sometimes throws in adult
They have
humor.
adult humor. Yeah.
This isn't adult humor. This is adults recognizing. Yeah, this is adult content.
It really
this is
is.
adults recognizing the life that they're living in this show.
Yeah.
That show is so much about the parents. It's as much about the parents
Right.
as it is about
if
the
not
kids.
more.
Yeah.
Like it's.
I
so good.
always leave an episode of Bluey feeling like I could be a better parent.
Yeah, me too. I kind of leave being like, "Fuck you, Bluey," because I just feel bad.
Well, it's like it does a couple things for me. What it does is it always puts me in a really good place to recognize that right now in our lives, it just isn't going to get any better.
I know.
And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's like this is the time in our lives that we're going to look back on and say, if I could go back, that's when I'd go back to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so good. I feel like I was at the park the other day with the kids, and there was actually just with Riley. And there was an older couple there, grandparents, and they brought their grandson, and they were from, it sounded like they were from Australia or like New Zealand. I don't know what Bluey's from.
You asked Bluey?
No,
Australia.
but so hold on. So I
Australia.
was like, so I'm listening to them talk, and the grandmother's like kind of talking to me, and she's so nice. And so I was like, you know what? I told Riley, I'm like, they sound like they're from Bluey. And I just was so infatuated with them because like the way they were talking, the way they were interacting with their grandson was literally an episode of Bluey. I was like, this is live. I'm watching an episode of Bluey live. It was so good. So I was like, oh man, I'm like, you remind me so much of the show Bluey. I'm like, where are you from? And she's like, what did she say? She's like, oh, we're from Kingston. And I was like,
Jamaica?
no. I was like, oh, okay. But like before that. And she was like, oh yeah, well, we moved around, from, Niagara Falls and then like all these Canadian cities. And I was like, how do I say like, where's your OG? Like, where is your accent? Cause she did not. She's like, what's Bluey? I'm like, just never mind. Like Riley was like, Mom, stop talking. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Anyways, okay.
Yeah, Bluey, great show. I can always tell when the music changes. There's this tone that the music does that's like, dear parents, this is a reflective tone.
Yeah.
This is for you to sit and listen to. This message is for you.
Right.
And it's so brilliant. And what I love about it and what I aspire to be more like when it comes to Bluey's parents
Yeah.
is present.
Mm-hmm.
When you watch them, and it's not even Bluey's parents, it's even the neighbors, right? Like the kids do this reverse psychology thing at the grocery store the other day, right? Where the dad is the kid and he's misbehaving, right? The people in the grocery store recognize that they're doing something and they just instantly get into character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, Mrs. Healer when it's Bluey, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah, yes, Mrs. Healer, right? They like because they know that she's now being the mom in this, and it's
Right.
just like, could you imagine if you lived in a village or a town where everybody allowed your kids to play imagination
Yeah.
and just bought into their imagination? How amazing of a world we'd live in if we just were so present to our kids' imagination that we were actually interacting in it.
It's kind of sad because we've said this before, like I will do anything but sit down and play like cars and Barbies and like pretend like, do you know what I mean? I just like after a long day, it's so hard to get into that mindset of being like present in that imagination. And it's so upsetting. Like it hurts myself that I'm like, can't you just do it? But I'm like, I really don't want to. Like, it's so hard for you to put your mind there as an adult. And it's like very frustrating. Anyways, that show's very confronting.
As a guy who suffers from headaches on an ongoing basis, to a point sometimes
I would say migraines.
Yeah, to some point it's migraines. The amount of times, and I will say, Brittany, I feel like every parent needs to lift their other partner parent up when they're having those days. You do such an amazing job of actually getting on the ground and playing with our kids, and the laughter that happens from our kids. You are so closer to the Bluey parents than I am, and it bothers me because not bothers me. Like I'm proud of it and it's so happy. But there's sometimes I sit on a couch with a headache or with the stress or a migraine, and I just look at you and I think to myself, get off the couch. Get off the couch. Ryan, get down on the ground with them. Get on the couch. Be there for these guys. And I just can't. And then I put the kids to bed and I've got like no energy left. And I'm like, get in bed. And then all of a sudden they're in bed. And I come downstairs and it's quiet, which is all I needed, which is all I wanted. And I think I just wasted a night with the kids.
But I also I would maybe enroll you the next time you have a really bad headache like that, because I give you this option every single time. Every single time you say, I have a very, I'm not doing well. What do I tell you?
Go upstairs, have a nap.
Go upstairs and lay down. That's the only thing because you need the silence. Go upstairs, lay down, set an alarm, and then come back. Because then you get to do both.
I know,
and
but then I get this guilt. I get this massive
you're
guilt.
going to have guilt regardless.
Do you remember,
have guilt at the end of the night.
Yeah, but do you remember 2 weeks ago I had a migraine and I went to bed and to take a nap, and when did I wake up?
Okay, but
the next day.
That's because you went to lay down, right?
I'm gonna lay down. See you tomorrow,
babe. At 8:45 when we put the kids to bed.
No, oh yeah, that's a different day. That was a different day.
No, it was the same day. You did not. You didn't have a nap. Like when it happens and it's after work, it's like 5:30. If you sleep till 6:30, you're fine.
Yeah. Anyways,
and you're gonna have guilt regardless. So
I got guilt. I've got guilt, and it's almost like
the guilt
I punish myself. And in two ways, because now I'm watching you guys and not participating, and I'm in their space and they're recognizing that I'm not participating.
So go away.
So it's worse for them. But at the same token, the last thing I want to do after spending all day not with them is to not be with them.
I can promise you it's so much worse when you're just laying there.
No.
It's way worse. Well,
yeah,
because
I get it. I bet you it is.
The kids are like, Dad, 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 Dad. And I want to be like, Brian, can you fucking answer them?
No,
but
you
I know
are.
I am, because it's annoying.
Can you answer them? I'm like, I can't talk.
Listen, so next time, go away. Go have a nap, recalibrate, and then come back, because you're not, this is going to sound bad, you're not bringing anything to the situation on the couch in that space because you're in pain. So if you go, you're helping yourself, you're helping the kids because they're not like, why the hell does Dad not want to play with us or answer us? Then you can come back a little bit rejuvenated or not. Maybe you have a night where it's just not going well, but it's so much worse when you just sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
So go have a nap, because then the guilt will go away because you're coming back. You're coming back and you're playing. So
I had one of these nights the other day when you were away with Riley for cheer, and I had just had Cooper, and he was just on me. And Cooper gets in your face, and he pushes his face into your face, and you're like, get your fucking face off of my face. Oh. I had one of those days. No, you don't love it. You love it when it's happening to someone else.
No,
when
I don't.
He's in your face and he's like,
no, he doesn't do that to me. He just comes and gives me kisses. I get that it's really annoying what he does to you.
He hits me. Not only he hit me, I don't see it coming, and he's so neglectful. He doesn't give a shit about his face, right? Yeah. He doesn't give a shit. And it's like when he's one of those kids that when he falls, he doesn't put his hands up to protect his face. And I'm always worried about it. And we always hit head to head constantly. So imagine having a migraine and having some fucking guy headbutt you 5 times. I'm like, Cooper, please stop. And I remember saying to him, I'm like, Cooper, honestly, bud, all I want to do is have a good night with you. All I want to do is have a good night with you. Please stop doing this because it's driving me nuts. Yeah. And all I want to do is sit and have a good night with you. And I can't do that when you're punching me. When I'm telling you to stop hitting me, I need you to stop hitting me. Mm-hmm. Just please give me an opportunity to be a good dad today. Is all I said to him. I begged him. And I'm like, what do you want for dinner? He's like, oh, I'm not telling you. I'm like, okay, well, then you're going to get nothing. And that sucks for both of us.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you, you're mean.
Is that when you called me?
Yes.
Yeah. I got a call at cheer. I'm with all the other moms. And Ryan's like, hi. And I'm like, hi. And you're like, quick question. Did Cooper eat dinner? And I was like, no. And he was like, okay. I'm like, why don't you just ask him? And he's like, you're like, because he's refusing to tell me. I'm like, he's 5. Why wouldn't you just put a consequence or get it out of him, and you were like, because he just didn't want to tell me, and I just was like, I'm gonna call your mom.
Yeah, and then and the same night I called you again because it's like 7:00, and he's like, "Mom promised me I could have a play date," and I'm like, "Well, your mother didn't tell me you could have a play date, so it's now 7:00. Your mom never told me that," and I'm like, "Your mom would never say you could have a play date when she's not home."
Yeah,
I said, and he's like, "Yes, she did." I'm like, "No, she didn't." He's like, "Yes, she did." I said, "Fine,
I'm
I'm gonna call her." So I put him on speakerphone, and to my surprise, you said what?
Well, he twisted it. I said, because he kept asking me when I picked him up from school, can I have a play date? I said, Mommy's not going to be home. I said, if you want to ask Dad when Mommy leaves, which was like 4:30, you can ask Daddy because he's going to be responsible. It won't be me. And you and I never had a chance to connect because you were on the phone as I was leaving. So I couldn't let you know.
Yeah.
But like Cooper loves to
It would have been
twist
helpful.
that.
It would have been helpful to know that you said that to
They
him.
both our kids like to do that. They like to like take what we say out of context and like find the loophole to say like, well, Mom said this or Dad said this. Anyways, we're
See,
because
on a day like that, it would have been way easier for me to have him have a play date, come into the basement while I sit upstairs, make dinner, and like give myself the break.
I know you want to talk about some things that we just accept as truth.
No, that's the next episode.
No, that's this one. We're at 21 minutes for sure. That's this one.
Oh,
so because we don't have that many.
Yes, we do.
I don't. I think we'll be good for the next 15 minutes.
Okay.
But I really quickly just want to say I watched this movie. It's new on Amazon, and it's called The Idea of You, and it's with Anne Hathaway and a newer guy. And
why do you say it like that? Is he a good looking guy?
Yeah, he's a good looking guy.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
You
I really
old
wanted
son
to.
of a bitch.
I really wanted to like this movie. It's based on a book, like a fan fiction book. Apparently, that's like the main character's loosely based on Harry Styles. So the idea is, or the concept is, that Anne Hathaway has a 17-year-old daughter. Okay, she had them when she was really young. She's divorced. Her ex-husband is like whatever. And so she's kind of like finding herself. Her ex-husband's with a younger person. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to go and have a weekend to myself. And her husband, her ex-husband, got tickets to Coachella for her daughter and her friends and was going to take them. At the very last minute, he's like, I have to leave for a business meeting. Can you go? She's like, fuck. So she's like, fine. So she goes, takes them.
Are you telling them people the whole movie? I'm telling them the whole.
Well, it's in the preview. Like, it's not. It's not in the, like, this is the description of the movie.
Okay.
So she goes, ends up meeting the main guy, like, of the band in, like, a random position, and they, like, start a relationship.
Was it doggy style or?
No, it's just like a
What was the
kismet
position?
meeting. A kismet meeting. Like, they're, like, cute. Anyways, he's 24, and she just turns 40. So it's, like, a whole, like, taboo of being, like, oh, younger. Anyways. It was so cringy. Like, I really like Anne Hathaway, and she's done some incredible things.
Princess Diary 1 and 2.
But I was really like, and I know I'm going to be carved for this because so many people love this movie. I felt like secondhand embarrassment with how forced the relationship was.
There was no chemistry?
No, and everyone's like, oh my God, they have so much chemistry. I'm like, where?
Yeah.
Where? It was so like, ooh, like there was moments of like, yes, it was cute. And like, they look incredible in the movie. I was just like, this is so forced. And it reminds me of like when you have like a really good actor and they make a shit movie and you're like, how did that happen? Like, it's like when you read a script, you're like, oh, this can be so good. And then depending on how it's shot, we've done this. We've like recorded so many ads before. And then we were like, wow, that was
let's
so
be very
shitty.
clear because that's going to make it sound like it's a Jake problem.
No,
we just didn't show up.
No,
We did
hold
a
on.
shit job
And then
on
I'm
it.
like, but it depends on the angles. It depends on how the actors show up that day. And it depends on how they deliver their lines.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it just doesn't all work together and it's terrible. But I was like, this is so bad. Like it was like a really bad W Network movie.
Yeah.
And I
know
just
exactly
was
what you're
like,
talking about.
I know I'm going to be carved for this. I'm sorry if you loved it. I loved the idea of it. The Idea of You is what it's called. I love the idea of it, but it just didn't hit for me.
Right on. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the stuff that we're going to talk about today, right?
Yes.
Which is
It's
great.
mostly going to be you because I don't really have
No,
any.
like, you know what? This is like, the other day I was sitting there thinking, because Cooper was really big into space for a little while, right?
Yeah.
And because he was really big into space and I'm really big into Cooper, I wanted to make sure that I knew answers to his questions. This is what I do for all of my kids. This is what I do for my nieces and my nephews. They're really big into WWE. If I know I'm going to see them for the weekend, I'll go watch a recap of what's happened in the last month so I can talk to them about wrestling. So with respect to Cooper, and
watch wrestling for the nieces and nephews.
I do. Thank you.
No, you don't.
Also,
You love it.
Also,
It's fine.
it's
Just
the
own
best
it.
storyline
Okay.
going. Anyways,
I've
yeah,
ever seen. Best storyline I've ever seen.
I'm Stuart's mom. What is it? How do you do it? Anyways. Yeah. Anyways, I just realized I sounded more like Waterboy.
100%.
No, you're wrong. Going with Sandwich.
7%. 100%.
Powerbomb, compliments of Captain Insano. Anyways, I want to keep doing that now. So we were talking about space, and I started thinking about space, and because I started thinking about space, some things started coming up that didn't make sense. And then we did a podcast episode not too long ago about conspiracy theories.
Right.
And in that podcast, we talked about a bunch of things, but it opened up this dialogue to a bunch of people who didn't know that I'm into conspiracy theories.
Mm-hmm.
And someone at work had asked me, well, what are your thoughts on flat Earth? And I thought, listen, I love a good conspiracy theory. I love it. But flat Earth, you can go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
But now Ryan
like,
knows everything about
I'm
the
like,
flat Earth theory.
I'm like, no, I'm not into flat Earth. Like, it's
wild.
round. We live on a globe. It's been proven time and time again. Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. We figured this thing out a long time ago, and there's way too much things to. Like, I'm not even gonna like entertain this, right? Yeah.
I literally almost corrected you for whatever reason. It was like, do you mean Christopher Nolan?
Yes, I do. Yes,
And
I
I was
do.
like, that's not the right name.
When he was directing Batman.
That's not the right name. I didn't say it.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yes, anyway. But now you're like, interesting.
No, and I said to them, I'm like, this isn't something I even
stupid
want to
idiots.
entertain. And they said, okay, well, I thought the same way. And then I started doing a little bit of research, and that's all it took. That was all it took for me to like
Consider
the
facts.
maybe there are things that we have been told that are truth, and we believe it to be true because we have no reason not to believe it to be true.
Right.
But maybe it's not true.
So
Right.
give an
And so
example.
I started diving into this. And now this is where all of this stuff started to kind of come out for me. So and again, this is what I'm learning about space. So we live in this world, and we've always been taught that there's the sun, right? And we go around the sun. All of us go around the sun. All of the planets just go around it. You can see it. You can picture it in front of you, right? It's like that thing where the Earth spins and goes around it, right?
Yes.
And then someone comes out and says, well, that's how we depict it, right? That's how it looks. That's the easiest way for us to describe how it works. How it actually works is there's this sun, and this sun is going fucking in space like this. And behind the sun is all of these planets going around it, right? So they're following this moving object, this massive ball of fire is going throughout space, and behind it, because of gravitational pull and all of the other things that go into it, we've got these big gigantic rocks or these gas balls, which, by the way, half of the planets aren't actually, you can't step on these planets. They're just big gigantic balls of gas. What? Mind-boggling.
I want to know.
How does it hang? Straight up, wait up, hold up, Mr. Lover.
I want to know how we know that. Like,
How do we know that? This is what I'm saying.
because
how do we know
we've
that?
been to the moon. I
Yeah.
know that people are going to be like, we're fucking went. Whatever. We've been to the moon. We have a robot that went to Mars.
Yep.
We haven't been any further. Correct?
Well,
Have we?
satellites have been further.
Sure. But like, then they're like, yes, we weren't able to step through this. Like, do we have
So these are the things
camera? Like, I don't understand. Like,
These
where
are
they're
the
like,
things-
yes, we've been there. We
That's what
weren't
I'm
able
getting
to
at.
step
These are
on.
the
Like,
things
it
that
is
we
gas.
we get a thing from NASA that says, oh, the James Hubble telescope told us that this is this.
Like,
and we're like,
what?
yeah, that's cool. That makes sense. And we've got these beautiful pictures of all of these galaxies that exist.
Right.
Massive galaxies, reds and blues and pinks and all of this. But you're telling me that we can't see other planets with like crystal clear clarity,
Yeah.
but we can see fucking galaxies that are outside of our solar system.
I know, I never
How do
understood
we
it.
even know what our solar system looks like? We've never been outside of the Milky Way to have a topographical view of what our solar system
Yeah,
looks like.
it's just a
and yet
guess.
here we are thinking, yep, that's what it looks
Well,
like.
I'm assuming that like the satellites take images, and then what they do is essentially like make a collage of like the images.
But we've never been to another star. We've never been to
Right.
another planet that's following following another
bizarre.
star.
It's
We've
so
never
bizarre.
been far enough outside of our solar system to have a bird's eye view of what the galaxy looks
I know,
like.
it's so weird. And I
And
always
yet
wonder,
we believe
like,
it to be true. Like, yep, that's what it is.
how can we send like tech and stuff out to these other planets, but we still can't get our shit together to go back to the moon?
How do we send
Like,
tech? How do we send
I don't
tech
get it.
70 years ago that has crystal clear pictures
don't
when
get it.
1080p didn't exist, when 4K didn't exist?
Very
These
weird.
cameras that we sent out there 60 years ago that are now taking photos
They're
of
just
it.
disposable.
How are they getting better? It's like a Tesla. I'm just going to upgrade it from here. How do you
Got
upgrade
it.
a lens? Jake, you know all there is to know about cameras and lenses. How do lenses get better in time when they're out there? They don't. And yet we're getting these beautiful photos from these images from these cameras when cameras were shit 60 years ago.
We're actually living in the Truman Show.
But let's go back for a millisecond, right? Because for one thing to be true, the other must not be true, right? So I look at it and say, okay, well, if we don't live on a flat earth, right? If we don't live on a flat earth, how is it that I can look up in the sky and I can see the moon? And I can look up in the same sky and I can see the sun.
yeah, I never understand
But
that.
my best friend who lives in Australia
Is also
isn't
looking
in
at-
pitch black.
It's so bizarre.
How is it that I can see at a 45-degree angle the moon and a 45-degree angle the sun, and we're on a globe? If I can see them, he can't. We believe like a sun comes up, moon comes up, like it just rotates like this. He sees the moon, I see the sun. Yeah, but what about when I'm seeing both? Does that mean he's seeing none of them?
Did you know that Australia is wider than the moon?
Yes.
Like, that's bizarre to me.
This is a question I asked Jake because Jake
Like,
understands
that makes
film.
me feel
and
like Australia, like the moon's kind of small.
the moon's not big. The moon's the size essentially. The moon is essentially the size surface area wise, the size of essentially the United States of America. It's not that big.
That's bizarre.
But here's my question. So when we look up at the moon and we see the size of the moon
don't
in our
get it.
sky, right? Have you ever noticed that the moon's essentially the identical same size as the sun? And people say, well, the size of the moon
well, sometimes
versus
the sun is massive.
sometimes the moon is massive.
No, like
Yes.
but I will say that there's clearly times where I'm like, holy shit, the sun is humongous today, where I've never said that about the moon.
I say it the other way around. I'm the other way
I've seen
around.
them more.
But anyways,
I've seen the
so
sun
here's
bigger
what
than the
here's
moon
what science
before.
has asked because
Have
I
I?
asked that question and science says, well, the moon
even know if
is
that's true.
the moon is X amount of feet away from us, right?
Yeah.
X amount of kilometers or miles away from us, and it's X at the size of it is whatever it is, right? The sun in relation is so much further away, and the size of it based off of the distance is almost identical in size moon to sun. You can look
Right.
it up right now, right?
look it up.
And I'm like, wow, that's incredibly like coincidental. But okay, no problem, whatever. So we look up at the moon and we see it and it's big, but it's not huge.
Right.
Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, they land on the moon and they
Do you
take
mean
photos
Lightyear?
and they take photos of Earth back from the moon. Why is it that the Earth, which by the way is way bigger than the moon, looks the same size in their photos as our Earth looks, or their moon
Because
looks
you
to
would
us
think
from
that
here?
we would have to be farther away for
We'd be
it
the
to
exact same distance of us to the moon as the
Yeah,
moon
yeah,
to
yeah,
us.
it would look huge.
And if we're
It should look
5
big.
times, 6 times, 10 times bigger than the moon, in the photo, it should take up space. And yet it's the same size as the
Mm-hmm. You're
moon
right.
in those
That's
photos.
Bizarre. I
Why
never
does
thought
that,
about
how does that make any sense? The
That's
distance
so
is the exact
weird.
same. It should occupy more size in space, and it doesn't.
That's weird.
It does not. And when then we start looking at then you start looking at it and you're like,
does not.
then you start looking at it and you're like, wait a second. They have video of the moon lander leaving the surface of the moon and the camera follows it up. Who's filming that?
It was me.
Yeah, Jake. Yeah.
No,
Who
you could
films
say that it could be like the tracking. Like there's a lot of answers that could be for that.
So NASA just comes out, right? Because when the eclipse happened, they're now exploring the moon again, right? NASA's now exploring the moon, and they talk about getting man back onto the moon. And one of the things that they were talking about was live streaming it, and NASA said we can't live stream it. We said, well, why can't you? Not we, I wasn't there. Why can't you live stream it? And they said, well, because we don't have the technology to do it. But in 1969, we had the technology to do it.
I don't think that was live stream.
It was live streamed. the moon landing was live streamed. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. It was live streamed.
Are you sure that
And
was
it's been live streamed. Every moon landing that has ever happened has been live streamed.
What's their reasoning for that?
They said we don't have the technology to do it anymore. And one scientist from NASA says we're trying to get out of the Van Ryan belt. So there's a radiation belt that happens around the Earth, and human beings can't get past that. So there's space, and then there's deep space. And all of these NASA astronauts today are talking about the fact that we can't get out of low orbit space. Low orbit space is the stuff that you see like Elon Musk and all of those guys jumping into when they're doing those shuttles out to space. They can't get into deep space, and the moon is considered deep space because it's past this Van Ryan belt.
Okay.
And the Van Ryan belt is essentially you walk through it, you come out with cancer because the radiation is through the roof. But yet we did it 7 times. How is that even possible? NASA's still trying to figure out how to do it. And this scientist says, well, we had the technology, but we got rid of the technology. And now we don't have any of that technology available to us. Really? Really? We've advanced in everything except for fucking space travel?
So disgusting.
But think about this. So let's go back to the sun, because this doesn't make any sense to me. So if we're going around the sun,
Pray tell.
So if we have it looking like we're going around the sun.
Yeah.
So we're on one side of the sun, and then we're on the other side of the sun.
Can you chill with your fucking hands?
If this is how we believe it to be true, then half of the year we would be seeing space with all of like the Orions and the constellations. Thank you. We'd be seeing all those constellations, and then the other half of the year we'd be seeing the other side, which would be different constellations. But the constellations never change. And then someone says, well, that's because all of space is moving at the exact same time. So for thousands and thousands of years, we have been researching and conducting research around the constellations. We have been tracking our whole calendars based off of the constellations. The constellations have never fucking changed in the thousands of years that we've been documenting it. The stars that we see are only those stars. But then it says, well, because it doesn't actually go around the sun. It goes like this and it follows the sun. Okay, well, that makes sense. Well, if that makes sense, why is it that the equator is the hottest part? Because it's the closest to the sun. Are we not on the rotational thing that they're doing?
I'm not going to lie. I have seen multiple diagrams of how, you talk about the sun moving and all the space. I've seen it. I've been taught it, and I look at it and I'm like, right. I still don't fucking understand it.
It makes no sense.
I cannot process the axis of the earth, the tilting, the sun. I can't. My brain's like,
yeah, payback's a bitch.
My brain is literally no. I cannot fathom. Anyways, space. It's such a trip.
It's so trippy.
Let's talk about the fact that you're like, did you know that they found water underneath water? And I said, pourquoi? What do you mean? And you're like, yeah. They just came out. Who the fuck is they, by the way?
Scientists have just found a cavernous space under the ocean where a body of water exists below the ocean.
So what would have to happen for me if I'm processing this is the bottom of the ocean, right? Sand.
Yeah.
Then directly underneath that sand is more water.
Yes.
Miles.
Yeah.
So no, this is the craziest thing, Jake. So not only have they discovered that there's more water under the water, there's a cavernous space that occupies Earth, under Earth, that is filled with water. Not only is there water, but the amount of water that exists under the water is 4 times the amount of water that's on our planet.
How do they know that?
How do they know that?
And how can there be 4 times more water
inside the water?
Inside the water, because that means that would suggest that you would need more water,
right,
or bigger space. Are they talking about underneath land then? But that still doesn't make sense because the water takes up however much of the
imagine
earth.
This. Imagine all of the water from the surface of the earth is taken off, and all we see is land mass. Instead of the bottom of the ocean being the bottom of the ocean, it's just land mass.
Okay.
Essentially, underneath that land mass is a massive amount of water. And look at it like a sink, it's leaking, and the leak has come out, and it's filled the land mass with water from the leak.
Okay.
underneath the leak is where all the water actually is. But we have been told for years. We have been told for years and years and years. You can cut the earth in half, right? And you can see it.
Yeah. Core.
Yeah.
Molten
rock.
lava. Center Earth.
Yes. Right? We've been told all fossil fuels.
The rock.
Yeah. We've been told all of this, and we've been explained all of this, and we ask, well, how do you know that if you've never been to the center of the earth? Yeah. No one's ever dug to the center of the earth. So how is it that you know that it's filled with all of these things?
And
well, we've dug pretty deep.
How can you?
Is the rest of it just a lie?
How can you determine that it's 4 times as much water? There's 0% chance.
How do you measure it?
Yeah, like what were you using? Your like guesstimation? Like how are you like, you know what, let's just say it's 4 times. And everyone's like, yeah, that tracks.
But this is what I'm getting at. We as adults believe things to be true because someone said it factually.
Yeah.
And we don't question it. Mm-hmm. Why don't we question things like the moon landing?
Well, I do think
Why don't we question these things? Like when it comes to flat earth, do I believe we live on a flat earth? No. But do I believe that Earth is probably way bigger than we actually think it is? Yes, I do.
I think that back in the day, people believed things as facts because there was 1 to 2 outlets, like media control. Media still controls the narrative of things, but there are also other narratives being projected that you can actually research if you're curious about it. So I think today we are questioning things a little bit more because we have the means to do so. Right.
Well, going back to the conversation about the other galaxies, right? It has now been stated. I don't know if it to be true, so please don't recognize this as a statement of fact from Ryan Ostafy. But it is my knowledge that today, all of the imagery that we have seen of other galaxies are renderings. But they're not presented as such. They're presented as this is a galaxy. This is the galaxy that's closest to our galaxy. The closest galaxy to the Milky Way is Andromeda. And in 1.2 million years, Andromeda is moving faster than our galaxy, and it will crush into our galaxy. How the fuck do we know that?
Wasn't that a show?
Andromeda was?
Yeah,
yes,
on like TVO or something?
Andromeda was a TV show, but Andromeda is the galaxy closest to our galaxy according to science, and it is moving in space faster than our galaxy. And in like 1.2 million years or a billion years, I don't know what the actual number is, Andromeda will crash into the Milky Way.
Yeah. Cool. That's
How
terrifying.
do we know that? Someone says, well, you know that because
here's the calculations.
You know that because of
I would be like, you're right.
Because of light years. And then you asked the question yesterday, well, how do they measure light years? So I'm like, well, they just measure the speed of light, and then they say how far will that travel in 1 year, and that's a light year. And you're like, yeah, cool. How'd they measure light?
Yeah, I don't get it.
And I'm like,
there
that's
are
a really good question.
scientific
I don't know how they measure light. I just assume that they did. What is the utensil and tool that they use to measure light? You press a button and how quickly does it turn into the other side?
Wow.
Put a spark through a plastic tube.
And just fire it.
Really?
Yeah, and does light move in a vacuum faster than light moves not in a vacuum?
Yeah, there's so many variables.
I don't know this. We just assume these things to be true because we've been told they're true. But then when some conspiracy theory says, oh, this is a flat earth, and you laugh at them, but then all of a sudden you look up in the sky and you see the fucking moon and you see the fucking stars and you see this and you see the sun and you think to yourself, I'm looking at the same stars that my friend's looking at, and he's on the other side of this globe, and I'm looking at a moon and I'm looking at the sun, and he's got nothing. Hey, Tyler, can you do me a favor? Yeah, what's up, Brian? I'm in the middle of a court case. Yeah, I need you to leave. I need you to go outside, and I need you to look up in the sky. Why? Can you see the moon right now? Yeah, I can see the moon. Can you see the sun right now? Yeah. How?
I know. It's so bizarre.
Right, I gotta go.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know, bro, but like, I'm in trial right now.
Yeah.
So can we talk about this later?
Are you good?
And I don't know what time it is, but you got to stop smoking that stuff, right? And I'm like, I'm just so mad that I just accept this to be true.
I know. Anyways, start questioning the patriarchy, I guess.
I think it's wise to ask why.
Stay curious, folks.
Here goes a sight from my soul.